Well, my experience at Toastmasters would be this. When you have a speaker, the first question is, why this speaker? What are the credentials? Been in ministry, local church ministry, over 40 years as either a preacher or as an associate. And then the last 11 and a half, almost 12 years serving with this group called the Solomon Foundation. And my role with the Solomon Foundation is to be a relationship manager. What in the world does that mean? That means taking a preacher to lunch. That's basically what that means. And building relationships with church leadership, with pastors, preachers, with elders, and leaders within a congregation. My experience has been from Elk Mills, Tennessee, up into Saltville, Virginia. And my daughter was born back there. Two of our kids were born in Virginia and Tennessee. And we discovered that our oldest was bilingual. She was able to speak, "Y'all right?" And she was able to say, "Hello, how are you?" So she was able to be bilingual. Now, I do not mean any of that to be demeaning to the culture of the South, because I came away from that experience seeing what awesome people are who have a different culture and a different dialect, so to speak. Outstanding people, but with a different language. I then went back to Phoenix, Arizona, served in about 3 different little churches there. Deer Valley, a brand new church, and then Northwest, starting with Don Wilson. And then Don and I and 2 other pastors stepped out and started Christ Church of the Valley in Phoenix. The name of the valley, Phoenix, is known as the Valley of the Sun. And our target audience was anybody within the reach of the Valley of the Sun. We started with 8 people, 4 pastors, 4 wives, and our kids. Today, that congregation on Easter Sunday reached 90,000 people in the various campuses across the city of Phoenix and baptized 1,500 people. That's some of the background that I have. And then, leaving Christ Church of the Valley, went to a small, struggling, divisive congregation in Hesperia, California. And yes, California needs missionaries too, okay? And so we worked there and helped a congregation grow and do some significant things. Then, as a result of church politics, I found myself not preaching any longer, and we decided I'm in the land of ambiguity, and I never called anybody, never sent out a resume, and I get a call, and then I get a letter, and then I start with the Solomon Foundation. At that time, the Solomon Foundation was an entity that had net assets of about $45 million. Today, we stand at $1.2 billion, which indicates the growth of churches within our respective movement. So why am I here today? I'd like to tell you about the Solomon Foundation and what it is and what we do. Now, as you open that up and you see a rate sheet, and it talks about different products, that's not the main mission or thing that I want to talk about. I'm not here to sell you anything. I am here to tell you about a dynamic ministry known as the Solomon Foundation. That's the topic, because this is a ministry. But wait a minute. What does savings accounts, CDs, IRAs, custodial accounts, making loans to churches. How in the world is that ministry? When you look at the 5 core values that you'll find on one of these pages, you see who we are. Number 1 core value, as this entity began, was and will be the main core value. Number 1, we will honor God. When doing business and dealing with money, we will honor God. When we build relationships within the organization, we will honor God. When we present this ministry, we will honor God. The growth of this entity is God-driven. I have seen it. Solomon was a year and 3 months old when I came on board. And I have seen it through all of that growth. Many times growth goes to somebody's head. My buddy Don Wilson that started Christ Church of the Valley, and I participating with him, led a congregation with multiple campuses to 28,000. And the great thing about him is not just simply his leadership, but his integrity, because he is the same person today as he was when we met in his living room and started Christ Church of the Valley. I can say the same thing about the Solomon Foundation. We are a parachurch organization, but we believe that we exist for the church rather than the church existing for our parachurch organization. That is tremendously significant if you've ever dealt with parachurch entities. And I, as a pastor for 40 years, I've seen it. And so when I go to represent the Solomon Foundation, I make sure that that I am representing this ministry as how we can be of service to the church rather than the church meeting the needs of the Solomon Foundation. Number 2 core value is we want to see people baptized into Jesus Christ. That is the purpose for the things that we do. Churches need facilities. Churches need to build on a piece of property. They may need to buy a piece of property. Why are they doing those things? To expand their capacity to baptize more people into Jesus Christ. That's why we exist. We want to work with churches that have that kind of focus in their ministry, that want to see people come to the Lord Jesus. That is the type of church that we might like to work with and make loans to. 3rd core value is we will provide the best interest rate possible. And as you look at this little document, you will see that those are pretty significant and competitive rates for any kind of savings. We have raised our rates in the change in the political climate. Why? We want to provide the best rate to our investors. I do not remember and recall the number of investors that we have. It's between 7,000 and 9,000 people or investors that have accounts with the Solomon Foundation. Now, I'll focus on the rates at a little bit later time. So we want to provide the best interest rates possible. Core value number 4 is to help churches take the next step. Now, some people come to us wanting a loan, and we underwrite that. We take a very strong look and careful look at the finances. We count the beans, so to speak. But that is not the determining factor as to whether or not we accept or offer a loan. We go beyond that to then doing an underwriting with respect to leadership. Things rise or fall on leadership. And the best thing is to find leadership that is solid and strong. Now, on the street, a person might say, you know, you don't want to make a loan to a church because you don't know whether they'll pay you back. because they depend on donations. And that's the approach of the bank. Why do we make loans to churches? We make loans to churches because Doug Crozier, our CEO, my boss, has been doing this for almost 30 years. And how many foreclosures do you think he has experienced? 4. How many banks have that kind of ratio? They don't. And so 2008, 2009, I was in conversation with Doug, and he had a lot of his banker buddies that he would talk to. And they'd talk about how many troubled loans, how many foreclosures, all that kind of stuff. And they would ask, well, Doug, how many foreclosures have you had? How many troubled loans do you have? He said, well, at this point, we've only had 3 foreclosures. 3? How many troubled loans do you have? Oh, I can count them on one hand. The next words out of the banker's mouth was, you trade? The loans are solid. Why? Because we underwrite leadership. We have actually turned down a loan, several loans, because we saw something of issue, either in the leadership structure of the staff and the elders, or we had a suspicion about the leader himself. We called one fella in to a meeting with the board because one board member had a question. They brought the guy in, the question was asked, and within about 30 to 45 seconds, that loan disappeared. It was already ready to be approved. And the lifestyle of the pastor proved that that was a good loan to turn down, because 6 months later he was selling insurance. We look very carefully at the church, and we want to help churches. And sometimes we help a church by saying, no, we can't do a loan for you right now. Sometimes we help a church by saying, why don't you wait, and about a year down the road, we can help you. Or we say, there's just no way we can help you. But the majority of the time, we are able to help. Now, what has happened as a result of us helping these churches and providing loans? Because the majority of churches, probably 80% or more, cannot get a loan from a bank. And several reasons. Number one, the bank doesn't want to do it. So how do they say no without saying no? They will say, yes, we can do the loan, but you need to have 50% of your building project in cash, or 30% or 40% in cash before we'll do it. They want to make sure they've got all kinds of equity to protect themselves, and also make it so difficult that many churches cannot accomplish that. Here's a church in Phoenix, the Valley. The church's name is the Refinery. They had been established and they had been working in the Goodyear area for about 10 years. I called and visited them, and I had a difficult time finding the church. Now that's not very good if you can't find the church. And they were running about 300 at that time. They needed some help with a remodel. They were on Bullard Avenue in an industrial complex. You had to drive in and drive around the complex to find where to go to worship. They continued to grow even in that setting, and were running about 500. Then they found a piece of property right next to the 303 freeway, the brand new one going in, and Indian School Road. Right at the corner, they found this piece of property. We helped them purchase that property. We funded the construction of the building of that property. They were in the process of building it. They got their C of O, certificate of occupancy, right before Christmas. So they thought, well, what we'll do is we'll do a test run with this new facility and have worship on the Sunday in between Christmas and New Year's. What Sunday is the lowest attended on average of every congregation? In between Christmas and New Year's. They opened the doors to do their two services. Had 1,100 people show up. The previous Sunday they had 500. Now we get into why this is a ministry. How many people have been baptized in that congregation? Many, many. Because they have the space, they have the visibility, they have the ministry, they have the opportunity for people to then come to the church. Over the years, 13 years, the Solomon Foundation has recorded in all of the churches that we have loans with, from the time we've closed the loan, counted up over 70,000 people being baptized in those churches. Is this a ministry? Yes, it is. Now, the question is, how can you participate in this kind of ministry? I was a depositor with the Solomon Foundation before I was an employee. So when it came time for the refinery to secure a loan, secure the property, the money I had on deposit contributed to that opportunity and allowed them to build. People all across the United States, in every state of the union, there are people. As a result of those deposits, every time we make a loan to a church, we have all these depositors who are contributing by earning interest with Solomon. They are contributing to the success and to the victories that a congregation can have. It takes dollars to move forward, and we can supply the dollars, receive a rate of return that is very competitive, and do ministry at the same time. I can't think of a better ministry to be a part of than this type. Well, yes, I can. The local church. Because that's where the heart and lifeblood of the mission of Jesus is being accomplished. But we can help as a part of the Solomon Foundation, and you can help with your IRA, with your 403B, with your cash account, with an emergency fund, with a custodial account. It makes it possible for you to participate in a vibrant ministry and make a difference with your dollars. Now, if you invest, and I had a little savings account at Bank of America. What type of loans does Bank of America make? Well, I don't have the time to research that. But I'm sure that some businesses that they make loans to that I would not feel comfortable participating in that business. My great-grandfather and my father were alcoholics. Do I want to participate and allow my money to be loaned to a bar, a liquor store? No, I don't. I've seen the destruction of that. It violates my values. Now, with the Solomon Foundation, I can put money on deposit there and know that I am making a difference for the kingdom. Now, I don't have every dime at Solomon, but I do have a considerable portion at Solomon. And I'm thankful for the difference and the ministry that it's accomplishing. I could continue to name churches that have been blessed by the loans that we have given. Vale Christian Church in Tucson, 10 years in a high school, struggling to find a piece of property on which to build. Vail is a very difficult area to find a piece of ground. And today, there's only one church facility in the city of Vail, Vail Christian Church, because churches can't find and come up with enough dollars to purchase a piece of ground there. But we have been able to partner with them, and they're getting into their second process of building, because they're up around 700, 750, and they need more space to reach more people so that the kingdom can continue to grow. I've got story after story after story of those kind of things happening. A Church of Christ in the Bay Area, trying to find a home, trying to find a building, and found another Church of Christ that was selling their property, and we are helping them to acquire that facility. We have loans within the all aspects of this restoration movement, with the exception of the disciples. So whether it's an African American, a Black Church of Christ, whether it's a international Church of Christ, whether it's a Christian church, no matter what it is, we are confined and we work within the confines of the restoration movement. That's part of who we are and a charter, because the federal government allows us to do this. Securities Act of 33 and 34, when they rewrote they put in a little statement that a group of affiliated churches or denomination can form a church extension fund, offer securities or offer savings accounts, and then loans to churches within their denomination or group of affiliated churches. And so that's how we operate. Who keeps tabs on us? We have to go through a process of submitting financials, and we are audited on an annual basis by one of the top 4 auditing firms in the United States. And we have to, if I can use that word, in 50 different entities who will say, yes, you can still do business. Every state of the union, we have to file all of our financials. So there is oversight. This is not just, let's have one of these organizations and let's pool some money and do the business and have no oversight. There's a lot of oversight, and that is encouraging as well. Okay, let's look at the rate sheet. This little thing. Now, some of them are printed a little differently, but find there is over on the left-hand side a group or a type of investment which is called no term. In other words, you put your money on deposit and we will pay a rate of return, 2.85, and you can put it in today and next week pull some or all of it out. There's no term. That's what we use, or what my wife and I use, as an emergency fund. I hope that everybody's got some access or some plan for emergencies. We do it in this fashion. We put our money on deposit at Solomon. Now, my wife doesn't care for this term, but I call it the Amazon Fund, in case I see too many brown trucks showing up as she orders this, that, and everything else. I never know what is in the boxes when I go out to pick them up. But she lets me know. I tease her about that. She is extremely frugal and very wise. That's my attempt at humor. Then you have the other kinds of accounts. They may be 6 month, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. There's also a 10-year note in there. And so what you see then is the longer the term, the higher the deposit, the larger the interest rate. okay? Now, these are the rates for somebody who just deposits some cash. So I had some severance money. I put a deposit at Solomon. I've never touched it in 12 to 13 years. That money has doubled by being at Solomon. It's money I don't touch. You may be wanting to put some money back that you don't touch so that someday you can live off of the interest of that. Now, these rates also apply if you have an IRA that you would want to move that has a consistent rate of return rather than a market-based. So we offer an IRA, SEPs, we offer a Roth IRA. If you don't have an IRA, what I tell my kids, because I'm not a financial advisor, okay? But what I tell my kids and my grandkids is get into a Roth IRA. Because what you put in when you have that account and you put $10,000 into a Roth IRA, and then when it comes time to take out some of the earnings or of the principal, there is no tax on that account. If you do a regular IRA, then there are taxes and there are mandatory disbursements that you have to take. We also offer a 403B for pastors, and this is a great way also for building for retirement. We have also what are called custodial accounts. So when grandkids start coming along, Ann and I, my wife and I, established a custodial account for each one, rather than a government 5, whatever it is, to save for college. This way, they have a sum of money they can use for college. If they decide they're not going to go to college, they can go to a trade school. If they decide they're not doing that and they need a down payment on a house, if they need a car, they would have some money at age 21. So what we did is we took, as the last 2 were born, we figured out we want them to have this amount of money at age 18, and then at age 21 it becomes theirs. And we calculated it back. If we put this amount of, say, $4,000 into the account now, at this rate of return at Solomon, it will then equal this amount at the end. So those are some of the ways that you can use this type of product personally. Cash, qualified account, IRAs, custodial account, cash, that's basically the way you can use it. We have all of those kinds of accounts at Solomon except IRAs because of my 403B. Now, I told my kids and our grandkids, you know, Mom and Dad have this little side business. Yes, Mom is a nurse practitioner. Yes, I work with the Solomon Foundation. But we have this little side business. And it's a great business to be a part of, and I recommend it to you, to my kids, my grandkids. What's great about it is that we have, say, for example, 10,000 employees. And what's great about it is we don't have to give them much supervision. And we don't have any HR problems. We don't worry about vacations and time off for health reasons. So we don't have any HR things. And they're easy to remember, each of these employees, because they all have the same name. And the name that they have is Ben. And their job is collectively, as a group of employees, is to create another Ben. And after they create another Ben, then they create another Ben. And why do I name them Ben?
Benjamins.
Benjamins. Yeah, with the 1 and the 0, and the 0. Exactly. And finally, our kids have caught on, our grandkids. One is in his first year of college, and he's getting an education because it takes some money. And we had contacted him. We've got a bunch of stuff around our little acre and a quarter that we needed help with. He's got the muscle, his grandmother has the plan, and I get to write the check. And so what happens is he would work for us, and we'd give him some money for that. And one day he says, you know, could I get the interest off of my custodial account each quarter or each month to help me with college? I said, and this is really his name, Renton, here's the deal. Do you want to receive that interest, or do you want to let it ride and let it compound? Why do you want to take the interest out? How much are we paying you every week or so that you work? And the numbers were what we would pay him for a week, or for the day's wage, was the same as his monthly interest. So I challenge him and ask him, what do you think you want to do? He gets out his phone and he starts playing with the calculator, and then off quietly on the, as he's riding shotgun with me as we're going to get some stuff, he says, I think I'll leave it there. So he has caught the idea, the power of interest that is compounded and allowing it to grow to the point at which you begin to take care of you rather than you take care of the money. Our oldest grandchild lives in Mesa. She works at for some group of brothers. I think they're all Dutch. And so she's working at Dutch Brothers, and ever so often she comes back, and when we're in Mesa, because we live in California, but we have a condo in Mesa that's right next door to hers. The condos share a wall. So Riley is working there and gets her check. And I've talked to her several times about her account at Solomon. And she has opened up another account, a demand account, and then she has a 5-year custodial account that we set up for her. And I found out this week, as we were there and was talking with her, that this crazy girl is putting $210 a week into her 5-year custodial. So why are you doing that? She said, I want my money to make me some money. And so the more that I put in now, the more that will work on its own and become something significant later on. And so she's already caught the vision, which I'm very pleased with. And I think it's the result of the influence of her grandmother. I'm confident of that. Not grandpa, the grandma. But one more story, and then I would like to have you ask me any question about this. My wife, having worked in healthcare her entire career, and also doing a lot with hospice, she's seen a lot of things. So I'd built this, subcontracted out our home in Victorville. And so I'm a little bit attached to it because I built it. 2-story. And all of a sudden she says, we need to sell this and move. What? Why? She said, well, both of our mothers are continuing to age, and we need to be on a 1-story. Okay. Why? Well, we may need to take care of them. So she found us a house, 1 story, on an acre and a quarter. We made that move, and we ended up having my mother move in with us, and then her mother moved from Phoenix in with us, and that's where she spent her last day. And Ann was able to be there with her mother on a consistent and constant basis. And then she hits me with the other reality. Me, I'm just enjoying, my food and all going fishing and all this other stuff. And she's thinking, and now we know that we can retire in place on the 1 level that we live in. And then she purchased this condo that is right next to our daughter. So if time comes that we need to have a little supervision, my wife needs it, I don't need any supervision, then we're right next door to one of our kids. What made that possible? We lived in our life where we were the last one to get a color TV. We were the last one among all of our friends to have any kind of VR or whatever. We had the oldest phone possible because we didn't go for the nicest and newest, and we put dollars away. And so those dollars are going to be able to help take care of us. So in that process of downsizing and changing our living quarters, she said, now, I want a car. We want to buy a new car. And I said, we do? Yes, we do. And so we wanted to buy a new car. And she said, I want one that will last a long time. So she read up on it and she decided Toyota. And so we went to the dealer to buy her a car. This was in 2015. I couldn't figure out why she wanted a new car. I bought her a 2001 Explorer that was still driving. I didn't see any problem with it. Of course, I didn't have to drive it. But so we go to the dealer and we picked out the car and I said, okay, that's the one we want. Well, we need to check your credit. I said, you don't need to check my credit. I'm writing you a check. My dream had always been to be able to go to a dealer and write a check and buy a car. And this dealership destroyed that dream because then I said, okay, just check it as quickly as possible. Let me write the check. I want out the door. And I said it about that way. And so they checked the credit. The guy comes back and he says, you can have any 2 things we've got on the lot. I said, I don't want any of the 2 things you've got on the lot. I want to write a check for this, and I want to get out the door and drive this car home. And the guy says, well, would you consider 0% interest? I decided, well, I don't know. So I got out my phone and started running some numbers and figured out that if I left my money at Solomon, over that 5-year period, I'd have $9,000. So we decided to go ahead with their no interest, and we purchased that car at their expense with a $9,000 discount. The phrase that I've taught Renton is cash is king. And if you can put back cash as early as you can in your life, it is going to bring you a tremendous blessing. And with the Solomon Foundation, you know exactly what your dollars are doing. They are building the kingdom. You may find a better rate, but you won't find a better result. I don't know where I am in time. This is dangerous.
We got 1 minute.
1 minute?
For questions.
I'm sorry. I didn't. Any question at all?
I'm curious, do you know what you anticipate from the students here? You guys?
They'll probably be the same. We have changed our rates significantly once. And that was about a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Okay.
So we are not driven by the market. So feds can do whatever they want with the prime rate. Ours are governed by what is our cost of funds. So the cost of funds is what we pay in interest. And then our loans then pay the investors. And we operate on 2%.
So on here, your thing lists like the minimum amount needed for each different type of investment. Where does the Roth IRA fit into these?
You can start a Roth IRA with 25 or 50 bucks.
Okay, that's what I thought. And can we start the Roth IRA with Solomon, or do we have to start it elsewhere and then transfer it?
No, you can call our office, and we're really weird. You know, when you dial the number, that 855 number, and someone answers it, they don't tell you to punch 5, and then 4, and then 27, and then 332 to get to a person. You will speak to a person as they answer the phone. And what you would do then is ask for investments and somebody that can help me to set up an IRA. And we have 2 or 3 people that deal solely with the qualified accounts. The reason is, a big dumb preacher like I am, you don't want me trying to sort through all that.
And then where does the Roth IRA fall in the interest rates?
Any type of account that we offer, those are the rates.
Okay, so but the Roth IRA isn't like a 7-year thing, right? Like you can't take it out till you retire.
That's true. So what do? You set it up and you decide, do I want my interest being paid on a 3-year term, a 5-year term, a 6-month term? Well, you don't want to do that because it is long term. Then you want to decide what's the best interest rate and where do I want to go with it. Then at the end of the 5 years, then you have the option of continuing with another 5.
So as far as investments, you're only investing in churches. You don't make any outside other investments.
We do not make loans to individuals. We do not do home mortgages. We only do churches.
You don't buy stocks or anything.
We don't have any stocks. We don't have any other kind of
100%
things.
on who you're held at.
Yes. And so we keep it structured and we keep that 2% operating number so that we are not heavy in cash where we're trying to then find some way to invest it. And we stay away from the markets.
You're not borrowing any money to loan money. You're just using the funds that you receive from your clients.
Yes, with this caveat, we do have a line of credit. And the reason for that line of credit has been in the past that the interest rate the bank would charge us on that line of credit is less than what we can then make the loan to a church for. In other words, it would more than cover. And it's more of an emergency fund than it is an investment. Because then we know we will be able to raise the funds that we need to cover that and pay back that line of credit. It helps us to respond quickly to the needs of the churches.
Have you done many loans up in the state of Washington?
We had one in Puyallup. We have one presently in Richland. We have depositors. CEA is a depositor with the Solomon Foundation. At present, that's the extent of it. We have several in Oregon.
I was just going to say, going back in time a little bit, Real Life is one of your people you talked to.
Yeah, Spokane, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, they're mostly in Idaho.
Spokane and Post Falls almost are like an entity unto themselves. But we do have Real Life Spokane. We had also another Valley Real Life Spokane, but they went with another entity. And then we have all of anything connected with Post Falls